The Index Card. Why Personal Finance Doesn't Have to Be Complicated, by Helaine Olen and Harold Pollack. Introduction. Imagine a man named Sam. A few years ago, his father passed away, leaving him a modest inheritance. Sam was a good man, a husband, a father, a hard worker. But he was also overwhelmed. Grief-stricken and buried under the daily demands of life, he did what felt safest. He took the money and put it in a simple savings account at his local bank. And there it sat. Every so often, a wealth officer from the bank would call, offering a complimentary meeting over coffee and muffins. Sam would go, and the advisor would talk about his kids and his job, and then, speaking very quickly, would start throwing around words like expected rates of return and risk and the importance of the stock market. It all felt complicated, pressured. So Sam would hold off. He'd call friends for advice. One said to buy bonds. Another mentioned something called index funds. A third offered to manage the money for him, though he was vague about how he'd get paid. Then came the horror stories. Friends who lost a bundle in the tech crash, stories of kind-looking men who swindled elderly parents out of their life savings. Everyone seemed to have a secret, and every secret contradicted the last. It was too much. The fear of making the wrong move was so paralyzing that Sam did the only thing that felt safe. He did nothing. And so, his inheritance slowly lost its value to inflation, while the market went on one of its best runs in history. Sam missed all of it, stuck on the sidelines, frozen by a world that tells us that money has to be complicated. This story is at the heart of a brilliant and deceptively simple book called The Index Card, by Helaine Olen and Harold Pollack. It's a book born from a single, powerful idea, that all the essential financial advice you'll ever need can fit on a single 4x6 index card. This isn't just a theory. One of the authors, Harold Pollack, is a university professor who, by his own admission, knew next to nothing about money for most of his life. He made the same mistakes many of us do. He bought dot-com stocks that crashed, overpaid for a new car, and let costly debts pile up. Then, life happened. A family tragedy forced him and his wife to take in his brother-in-law, who has a severe intellectual disability. Suddenly, their income fell and their expenses soared. They were living a life they had never expected, and Harold knew he had to get their financial house in order, fast. Through trial and error, he pieced together a set of simple, powerful rules. Rules that were embarrassingly simple. And when he scribbled them down on his daughter's index card and posted a picture online, the image went viral, seen by hundreds of thousands of people around the world. Today, I'm going to share those rules with you. My promise is this: by the end of our time together, you will have a complete, powerful, and stress-free financial plan. One that cuts through all the noise and complexity, and gives you the freedom to stop worrying about money and start focusing on your life. Let's begin. Book summary. The journey to financial peace doesn't start with complicated spreadsheets or risky stock picks. It starts with a single foundational habit. The first rule on the index card, and the bedrock of everything else, is this: strive to save 10 to 20% of your income. Now, I can already hear you thinking, 10 to 20%? That sounds impossible. And for many people, it feels that way. The authors are quick to point out that this isn't entirely your fault. For decades, wages for most people have barely budged, while the costs of the big things, housing, healthcare, education, have skyrocketed. At the same time, we live in a society that constantly bombards us with messages to spend more. We see our neighbors with new cars, our friends on lavish vacations, and a little voice inside us whispers, "Why not me?" Economists even have a name for this: trickle-down consumption. The more the wealthiest among us spend on luxury goods, the more pressure everyone else feels to keep up. This creates a perfect storm of financial stress. We're squeezed from both ends, and it puts our brains into what the authors call tunneling. When you're constantly worried about making it to the next paycheck, about the car payment, the rent, and the unexpected field trip fee your daughter just brought home, your mind can only focus on the immediate fire. You lose the ability to think about the long term. You make mistakes, like forgetting a credit card payment, which only adds more fees and more stress to the pile. The only way to break this cycle is to learn how to save. It's the muscle that makes everything else possible. But how do you start, especially when things are tight? The first step is simply to understand where your money is going. For 3 months, track every single penny you spend. That $2 coffee, that $5 bag of chips, it all counts. You can use an app like Mint or just a simple notebook. The goal isn't to judge yourself, it's to gather information. At the end of that period, you'll have a clear picture of your financial life. You'll see what's necessary, what's a luxury, and what's just waste. Once you know where your money goes, you can create a realistic spending plan. This isn't about a rigid, painful budget. A starvation budget works about as well as a starvation diet. It's doomed to fail. Instead, think of it as a flexible plan. You need to leave room for fun. See a movie, go out to dinner with friends. The point is to make conscious trade-offs. Maybe you'll skip the daily latte so you can save for that trip to Italy. You're not depriving yourself, you're choosing a bigger yes over a smaller one. The key to making saving stick is to make it automatic. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to your savings account the day you get paid. This is the principle of paying yourself first. The money is set aside before you even have a chance to miss it. If 10% feels like too much, start with 1%. Seriously. After a month, bump it to 2%. The habit of saving is like a muscle. It gets stronger the more you use it. But what should you be saving for first? Your absolute first priority is to build an emergency fund. This is 3 months of essential living expenses, rent, food, utilities, stashed in an easily accessible savings account. This fund is your financial foundation. It's what turns a crisis, like a broken-down car or a lost job, from a catastrophe into a manageable inconvenience. Now, this brings us to a crucial point, and the second rule on the index card. Many people, when they start saving, face a dilemma. Should I build my emergency fund, or should I pay off my credit card debt? The answer leads us to Rule 2. Pay your credit card balance in full every month. If you're already carrying credit card debt, paying it off is the single best and safest investment you can possibly make. Think about it this way. The average credit card interest rate is around 15%, but for many store cards, it can be over 20%. When you pay down that debt, you are essentially earning a guaranteed, tax-free return of 15 or 20%. No investment in the world can reliably offer you that. The credit card industry is designed to keep you in debt. They don't make money from people who pay their bills off every month. In fact, they call those people deadbeats. They make their money from the interest and fees charged to people who carry a balance. That minimum payment listed on your statement, it's not a helpful suggestion. It's a trap, designed to keep you paying interest for as long as possible. So, how do you escape? You need a plan. First, list all of your debts, from credit cards to car loans, and write down the interest rate for each one. Then, focus all of your extra money on paying down the debt with the highest interest rate first, while making only the minimum payments on everything else. This is called the avalanche method. Once that highest interest debt is gone, you take all the money you were paying on it and attack the next highest one. This is the fastest and cheapest way to get out of debt. Some people prefer the snowball method, where you pay off the smallest debt first to get a psychological boost. The authors say that's fine if you need the motivation, but know that it will cost you more money in interest over time. As you're paying down debt, try to stop using your cards altogether. Switch to cash or a debit card. Studies have shown that we spend significantly more, up to 20% more, when we use plastic instead of physical cash. It's a psychological trick. Swiping a card doesn't feel like spending real money. Parting with actual dollar bills is more painful, which forces you to be more mindful of your purchases. Once you've built a small emergency fund and have a plan to tackle your high-interest debt, you're ready to start building real, long-term wealth. This brings us to Rule 3. Max out your 401k and other tax-advantaged savings accounts. This is where the magic of compounding really begins. When you're young, time is your greatest asset. If you start saving just $104 a month at age 25, assuming a modest 6% return, you could have over $200,000 by age 65. But if you wait until you're 45 to start, you'd have to save over 4 times as much each month, $430, to reach that same goal. That's the power of starting early. A 401k or a 403b is a retirement plan offered by your employer. The money you contribute is taken out of your paycheck before taxes are calculated, which lowers your taxable income for the year. That money then gets to grow, tax-free, until you withdraw it in retirement. But here is the most important part. Many employers offer something called a match. This means that if you contribute a certain percentage of your salary, say 5%, your employer will contribute that same amount for free. This is free money. It is a 100% return on your investment, instantly. Not taking advantage of your full employer match is like turning down a raise. It is the single biggest financial mistake you can make. At the absolute minimum, you should contribute enough to get the full match, even if you are still paying off debt. If your employer doesn't offer a 401k, or if you want to save even more, you can open an individual retirement account, or IRA. There are 2 main types: a traditional IRA, where you get a tax deduction now, and a Roth IRA, where you don't get a deduction now, but all your withdrawals in retirement are completely tax-free. For most young people, the Roth IRA is the better choice because you're likely in a lower tax bracket now than you will be later in life. These accounts are for retirement. They are not a piggy bank for a new car or a vacation. The government imposes a 10% penalty on top of taxes if you withdraw the money before you're 59 and a half. This is to discourage you from rating your future. So now you have money flowing into your retirement accounts. The big question is, what should you invest it in? This is where most people get tripped up. The financial world seems impossibly complex, filled with people shouting about the next hot stock. And this brings us to one of the most important and liberating rules on the entire index card. Rule 4 is simple and absolute: never buy or sell individual stocks. Let me repeat that. Never. Individual stocks. Why? Because picking stocks is a loser's game. The person on the other side of that trade, the professional at a Wall Street firm, knows more than you do. We all love to believe we're the next Warren Buffett, that we can spot the next Apple or Amazon. But the research is brutally clear. The vast majority of individual investors who try to pick stocks end up underperforming the market. We buy high, when everyone is excited, and we sell low, when we panic. It's human nature. The authors tell a powerful story about the company Kodak. For most of the 20th century, Kodak was one of the most dominant companies in the world. It was considered a sure bet. Many employees in its hometown of Rochester, New York, loaded up their retirement accounts with Kodak stock. Then came digital photography. The company that seemed invincible went bankrupt. Those life savings were wiped out. You might think you would have seen it coming, that you would have sold in time. But we all think that. The truth is, for every person who gets lucky with one stock, thousands of others lose their shirts on companies that seem just as promising. So, if you're not supposed to buy individual stocks, what are you supposed to do? The answer is Rule 5. Buy inexpensive, well-diversified index funds and exchange-traded funds. This is the secret that the financial industry doesn't want you to know. An index fund is simply a basket that holds all the stocks in a particular market index, like the S&P 500, which represents the 500 largest companies in America. Instead of trying to beat the market, an index fund's goal is simply to be the market. It doesn't try to pick winners, it just buys a tiny piece of everything. And here's the amazing part. By doing nothing, index funds consistently outperform the vast majority of highly paid, professional money managers who are actively trying to pick stocks. Why? 2 reasons. First, as we just discussed, picking stocks is incredibly hard, even for the pros. But second, and more importantly, is fees. Actively managed mutual funds charge high fees to pay for their research, their fancy offices, and their big salaries. Index funds, on the other hand, are run by computers and have incredibly low fees. A difference of just 1% in fees might not sound like much, but over a lifetime of investing, it can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost growth. It's the single biggest factor in your long-term investment success. Even Warren Buffett, the most legendary stock picker of all time, has instructed the trustees of his own estate to put his wife's inheritance in a very low-cost S&P 500 index fund. If it's good enough for Warren Buffett's family, it's good enough for us. So, your portfolio should be simple. The authors suggest a mix of 3 basic types of index funds: a U.S. total stock market fund, an international stock market fund, and a bond fund. Stocks provide the potential for long-term growth, while bonds provide stability. A simple rule of thumb for how much to put in each is to take your age and have that percentage in bonds. So, if you're 20, you might have 20% in bonds and 80% in stocks. If you're 60, you'd have 60% in bonds and 40% in stocks. The idea is to take on more risk when you're young and have time to recover from downturns, and become more conservative as you get closer to retirement. With these first 5 rules, you've built a powerful system for managing your money. You're saving consistently, you're debt-free, and your money is growing quietly and efficiently in the background. Now, we need to talk about how to protect it. This leads to Rule 6, make your financial advisor commit to the fiduciary standard. This might be the most important rule you've never heard of. A fiduciary is a financial advisor who is legally and ethically bound to act in your best interest. It seems obvious, right? You'd assume anyone calling themselves a financial advisor has to do that. But you'd be wrong. The vast majority of people who give financial advice are not fiduciaries. They are brokers, who work under a much weaker suitability standard. This means the investment they recommend only has to be suitable for you, not that it has to be the best one. If there are 2 identical funds, but one pays the broker a higher commission, they are perfectly allowed to sell you the more expensive one without telling you. Their primary duty is to their company, not to you. This is a massive conflict of interest, and it costs American families billions of dollars a year in hidden fees and poor advice. The only way to protect yourself is to ask one simple, direct question to any advisor you consider working with. Do you operate as a fiduciary at all times? If they hesitate, give you a complicated answer, or say they are fee-based, which often means they can charge fees and collect commissions, you should walk away. A true fiduciary will be proud to say yes. Next, we move to the biggest purchase most people will ever make, and Rule 7, buy a home when you are financially ready. Our culture tells us that owning a home is the ultimate American dream. But buying a house before you're ready can quickly turn into a financial nightmare. A home is not just a place to live, it's a highly leveraged and expensive investment. So, when are you ready? The authors lay out a clear checklist. First, You need to have your debt under control and a fully funded emergency fund. Remember, when you own a home, you are the landlord. When the roof leaks or the furnace breaks, there's no one to call but you. Second, you should aim to have a 20% down payment. If you put down less, you'll have to pay for something called private mortgage insurance (PMI), which is an extra monthly fee that only protects the lender, not you. A 20% down payment also gives you a buffer in case home prices fall. Finally, stick to a plain vanilla, 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. Avoid complicated adjustable-rate mortgages where your payment can unexpectedly skyrocket. The goal is predictability and stability. Don't buy more house than you can comfortably afford, which experts say means your total housing costs shouldn't exceed about a third of your take-home pay. Now for Rule 8, which is about protecting yourself from the biggest financial risks of all, insurance. Make sure you're protected. Insurance is something nobody wants to think about, but going without it can destroy a lifetime of hard work in an instant. You need 4 main types. First is health insurance. In a country with the highest medical costs in the world, a single unexpected illness can lead to bankruptcy. It's non-negotiable. Second is term life insurance, but only if you have people who depend on your income, like a spouse or children. Term insurance is simple and cheap. It covers you for a specific period, say 30 years, and if you pass away during that time, your family receives a payment. Avoid complicated whole life or universal life policies, which bundle insurance with a high-fee investment component. They are almost always a bad deal. Third is disability insurance. You are far more likely to become disabled during your working years than you are to die. Disability insurance replaces a portion of your income if you can't work due to illness or injury, and it can be the only thing that keeps your family afloat during a crisis. Finally, you need auto and property insurance, homeowners or renters. The key here is to get high liability coverage. This protects your assets if you're sued, and a high deductible. A high deductible means you'll pay for small things, like a broken window, out of your emergency fund, but it will dramatically lower your monthly premium. Insurance is for catastrophes, not minor inconveniences. This brings us to the final 2 rules, which zoom out from our personal finances to the world we all share. Rule 9 is unexpected but powerful. Do what you can to support the social safety net. The truth is, no matter how well we plan, we can't protect ourselves from everything. A major economic recession, a debilitating illness, a global pandemic, these are risks that are too big for any one person to bear alone. That's where programs like Social Security, Medicare, and unemployment insurance come in. These programs are, in essence, our country's insurance policy. They are the backstop that protects all of us when things go wrong. Without Social Security, for instance, nearly half of all elderly Americans would live in poverty. The authors argue that a strong social safety net doesn't just help those in need, it makes it possible for all of us to have more stable and secure financial lives. It is the foundation upon which our individual efforts are built. And finally, we arrive at Rule 10, the one that ties it all together. Remember the index card. In a world that constantly tries to convince you that finance is too complicated for you to understand, this simple card is your defense. It's a reminder that the core principles of sound financial management are simple, timeless, and within your grasp. You don't need to be a Wall Street genius. You don't need to watch the stock market every day. You just need to follow a few common sense rules, consistently, over time. That's it. That's the entire plan. Save 10 to 20%. Pay your credit cards in full. Max out your tax-advantaged accounts. Never buy individual stocks. Use low-cost index funds. Only work with fiduciaries. Buy a home when you're ready. Get the right insurance. Support the systems that protect us all. And never forget that simplicity is your greatest strength. Commentary. What I find so profoundly beautiful about the index card is its defiant simplicity. We live in an age of information overload, where complexity is often mistaken for sophistication. The financial services industry, in particular, thrives on this confusion. It has built a multi-trillion-dollar empire on the premise that money is a mysterious language that only its highly paid priests can interpret for us. They sell us complicated products with hidden fees, they encourage us to trade stocks based on fleeting emotions, and they create a sense of anxiety that makes us feel dependent on their expert guidance. This book is a quiet revolution against all of that. It's a declaration of independence. What Helaine Olen and Harold Pollack have done is strip away all the noise, all the jargon, and all the self-serving advice to reveal the elegant, unshakable truths at the core of personal finance. Their message is both liberating and empowering. You don't need them. You don't need the shouting heads on TV, you don't need the slick brokers, and you certainly don't need to spend your life worrying about money. You already have everything you need to succeed. The most powerful lesson in this book isn't about Roth IRAs or asset allocation. It's a lesson in mindset. It's about recognizing that the goal of a financial plan isn't to get rich quick. It's to build a system that allows you to live your life with peace of mind. A good financial plan should be boring. It should run quietly in the background, automated and effortless, freeing up your time and mental energy to focus on the things that truly matter: your family, your work, your health, your passions. So, if you take anything away from our time together today, let it be this. You can start right now. You don't need a lot of money, and you don't need to be an expert. Here are a few simple actions you can take today to put these principles to work. First, automate one thing. Go to your bank's website right now and set up an automatic transfer of just $20, or even $5, from your checking to your savings account each week. The amount doesn't matter. The habit does. Second, find your highest interest debt. Look at your credit card statements, identify the one with the highest APR, and make a plan to put an extra $50 towards it this month. That one small action is a powerful step towards financial freedom. And third, take out a literal index card and write down these rules. Don't just think about it, do it. Put it on your fridge or tape it to your computer monitor. Let it be a physical reminder that you are in control, that you have a plan, and that the path to financial security doesn't have to be complicated. That was a summary of the index card by Helaine Olen and Harold Pollack. We certainly touched on the core ideas today, but a summary is like looking at a photograph of a great meal. You can see what's in it, but you can't taste it. The real value of this book is in the stories, the clarity of the explanations, and the feeling of confidence it gives you. This summary is your map, but the book is the journey. If any of the ideas we've discussed have sparked something in you, I encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning financial rules, it's about fundamentally changing your relationship with money, trading anxiety for peace, and complexity for a simple, powerful plan. A link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary helpful, I'd be so grateful if you would hit that like button and subscribe. We explore a life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf every week, and I'd love for you to join our community. Let's keep learning and growing together.